So I just came across a story of a little white girl who was walking her dog down the street, and then I guess her neighbor saw this and decided to call Child and Family Services and the police, who eventually showed up at the mother's home and questioned her, and later, after investigating for a week, the Child and Family Services and stuff, they found that there was, like, obviously no wrongdoing. You're allowed to let your 8-year old walk by themselves, around the street. They're allowed to do some things like this, right? But this case in particular is not going to be used by Sean King and all these race hustlers and stuff to say that, oh, this is a white supremacy and white people want black people killed because every time they call the police on them, that is essentially a death sentence, right? People like him are going to ignore stories like this because it does not fit the narrative. They want you to think that it's only black people or having people call the cops on them for bullshit reasons. No, it happens to a lot of people of all different races. And there was like a case like this a month ago too. A little white girl was selling, I think, lemonade and had the cops called on her multiple times. But that isn't going to get the same coverage, the same attention that when it happens to a black person or something, because they can't use it, right? They can't use it to race bait. They can't use it to divide, because you can't be racist towards white people and you can't do anything really bad towards them. So it's like, instead of what is happening right now, that people are just shaming the mother, saying that she's a bad mother for letting her kid out, right? Where if it was, let's just say it was a black mom and let her black girl walk the dog, nobody would be saying she's a bad mother. No, but nobody would be saying that. They'd be like, oh my God, look at these evil white people trying to get us killed. Or if it wasn't a white person that called the police on them, they just wouldn't mention the race, and they say, somebody called the police on this girl, right? And in this case, I don't know, they're not looking at the race. What if it was a black person who called the police on this little white girl? Maybe that black person doesn't like the neighbor because they're white. I don't know. Did you do investigating? But, this case in particular probably has absolutely nothing to do with race, just like all of the other cases likely had absolutely nothing to do with race. Most of the problems, a lot of the issues with this has to do with statists, people who want the government to come in and do everything for them, to regulate everything, and to come in and get rid of eyesores, or come in and use the government to put these people in jail if they're doing something that I don't like, right? Like that person, the neighbor who saw this little girl, they're like, oh, I wouldn't let my kid do this. I wouldn't let this. So we need to call the cops and we need to get that kid taken away, right? This is why it's like I'm very reluctant to give anybody power, because everybody thinks they know the right way to do something, and they think, oh, if I was running things and if we did this and we did that, we just took these kids away from them and we didn't let kids do this and don't let them play video games and all this shit, then the world would be a better place, blah blah blah. So the problem is oftentimes statists, that one white woman who went to that black girl and was like, do you have a permit to sell this water? Do you have a permit? Do you have a license for this? It's like, really? And that other white girl who's selling lemonade, same thing. Do you have a permit for this? Do you have a license? Is this water regulated? Has it been tested? It's like, this is ridiculous, okay? We have too many regulations. We have too much bureaucracy. We have too much protections. And we need to allow kids to learn independence. We need to allow kids to learn the value of a dollar. I sold things when I was younger. I used to sell lemonade. I used to go and shovel people's walks in the winter, and I'd rake, mow lawns, do all this shit. But nowadays, if you did that, they'd be like, well, do you have a license to shovel my walk? Do you have a permit to do this? Because, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you shouldn't require it. Okay? That is nonsense. Like, this is why kids grow up nowadays and they just live with their parents until they're 30 or whatever, right? Because they've never had to work. They don't know the value of a dollar. They haven't learned too much independence. And kids, they want independence. They thrive for it. But if you take that out of them at a young age, then it's really hard to get that back. It's really hard to get that drive back. So we're just doing our kids a disservice by not allowing them to go out and roam, to go out and sell things and learn the value of a dollar, make a dollar or two. We're not helping anybody by regulating everything and creating bureaucracy that is pointless and that is just giving politicians or useless people on council membership jobs. It is unnecessary. Let our kids grow up, and we are just stunting their growth by doing shit like this, by calling the cops on a little girl selling water outside, on this girl walking her dog by herself. She's probably loving it. She's probably loves the fact that she's by herself and, learning independence. Little kids, one of the first things they want to do is ride the bus by themselves. They want to ride the city bus, go from point A to point B, and that is good for them to learn. And also, we can't buy into the media on this fear-mongering. Most people are good. Most people do not want to hurt your kids. It doesn't matter what race, what culture, a lot of the times that they are, they don't want to abduct them. If humans were naturally like this, and naturally we're just as evil as the media is making us all out to be and stuff, there would be way more deaths going on right now. There would be way more chaos. I just don't believe that humans on average want to hurt children. We are genetically prone to like kids, to want to protect them, to want to help them, and this goes for most people, right? So we don't have to be as afraid to let our kids go out there. Like, bad things do happen. People do get abducted. But this is why you need to teach your kid to also be independent, smart, and to be able to spot the signs of people who could be potentially dangerous. And they're not going to learn that unless they start interacting with more and more people. And the sooner they learn how to distinguish between good and bad people, sketchy people, non-sketchy people, the safer they're going to be. Because if you keep your kid insulated, you keep them sheltered, then when they do get out in the real world, they're going to be a full adult and they're going to be taken advantage of. And then they're going to come back to you, and they're going to be dependent on you forever. And this works out for the government. They don't want us to be dependent. They don't want our kids to learn these types of values. They want us to be dependent upon them. They want us to always look to them to fix our problems. So it works out for them that we don't teach our kids these things anymore. We don't send our kids out there because we're afraid of having, social services called on us, right? And it's bullshit. Like these things like this that happen, like this little girl, it's not a racial issue. And what happened to the other black girl and stuff and other people like this, oftentimes it's not a racial issue. It has to do with statism, and it has to do with people's just always wanting to the government to fix things. Like, oftentimes those people, they could have went out, talked to the people and had a conversation with them and maybe work something out, but we're just so unwilling to do that anymore. It's just like, just call the cops. We'll just call family services. Like, who knows? I don't know. Maybe this lady, the neighbor who called the cops, she just didn't like her, right? And was trying to, punish her in some way. Like, maybe that she doesn't cut her grass and her house looks like shit. So she's like, fucking, maybe I'm going to try to get her kids taken away, right? But which is a really scummy thing to do. If you're trying to use the state to, like, oppress other people who are doing things that you don't like, and if the things that they're doing that you don't like are not hurting anybody or anything like that, then you're a scum motherfucker piece of shit, essentially, right? That's what you are, and you're a statist scum. I don't like you, and go try to go live in a country, live around people who want to live in such a regulated, bureaucratic society that you want to live with. I want to live in a place where we have freedoms, where we're allowed to let our kids roam and learn independence, where we're allowed to let our kids sell fucking lemonade, walk the dog. Like this is essential to society. Everything, we need to start young. We need to start teaching our kids. Like, we wonder why nowadays everybody is so, kids want or are more left leaning and more status and want bigger governments. Is because this is how they are being raised. They're being raised, to stay indoors. They're being raised to be less independent. When kids were younger, like when I was young, I used to roam in the valley, in the woods by myself with my dog, like 7 years old, 6 years old. Like I would just go out in the woods. My parents would let me. Nothing bad happened to me. I used to go run around my town, go everywhere. I'd run around the city when I was a kid. Me and my friends would go biking around everywhere. But now you don't really see that anymore. And this is why we want, they're more statist. If kids grew up more independent, they learned more independence, they learned the value of a dollar, they learned all these things, they would naturally be more conservative and more right-leaning. So this is all for a reason. They want our kids to be like this. They want them to grow up in this type of, bubble-wrapped environment, because it just benefits them, not us. But that's all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.